Teachers of Reddit, what was your how are my students this dumb moment? Are mermaids real? Followed shortly by I don't believe in dinosaurs. She was 16. Once had a girl who thought there were people living on Venus. We just couldn't talk to them because they didn't have phones. I mean, you can't prove it's not true. I teach swimming lessons and lifeguarding courses. During one, I was trying to teach them CPR, and instead of showing them first, I told them to show me what they already knew about it. I then proceeded to observe 15, 16-20-year-olds do the weirdest shit to those poor training dolls. My favorite though was the kid who did a 2-foot jump onto the chest of the dummy. The dummy slid out from under his feet like a carton banana and he landed on his rear end on the pool deck. Good times. I have a poster on my wall that says something about not believing everything you read on the internet. And it attributes the quote to Abraham Lincoln. Student said, "Wait, did they have internet back then?" College instructor. You would be shocked. Just last year, multiple students can't save Word docs as PDFs. Students take smartphone pictures of every single slide while I lecture even though I upload them to our LMS. Personal favorite, when asked to insert a picture into a Word document. One student prints the Word doc, prints the picture, puts the picture on the Word doc, takes a smartphone picture and uploads the file. Miss my millennial students. Was the last guy trying to be funny? No. I asked him to resubmit as a Word doc and he said he didn't know how. I asked my students to write a sentence and give an example. One of the students, age 12-13, asked what's an example? Actually really hard to explain. Don't know if this counts. But I was a TA for a semester in grad school, never again. One student submitted this paper I will never forget. Basically, the author was wrong because a student found the argument boring. In explaining the author's argument, he got most points wrong and then proceeded to say he had a better argument. His argument was the author's argument. During a spelling test last year, I said a word 3 times and a student asked, "Miss, how do you spell that?" I asked my class of 5th graders what city they live in. And the first response was Texas. 3 weeks into writing a research paper. Okay, today we'll continue writing the body paragraphs of the essay. Student, what essay? That sounds like what my class would do to try and get out of an assignment. As well as complain in an attempt to get the deadline pushed back. This was high school college English 1301. She cracked down on that in 1302 by making them show the paper at certain stage or beyond every week or so. George Clooney was the first president, right? 10th grader. Coach, I was a baseball coach as well for a high school. Our bio teacher was talking about menstrual cycles. What is that? 9th grade female. Coach, I walked into the weirdest women's restroom. There were toilets with no stalls. I couldn't figure out how to pee in them. You walked into the men's bathroom. Those were urinals you saw. Oh. How to men pee in them. Same 9th grade female. What is Vladimir Lenin's first name? 8th grader. I replied Joseph. Does a male octopus have 8 testicles? 9th grade boy. In history class. Me. I'm thinking of a fruit that is yellow and very sour. Student, chickenpox. One of my 6th graders had a brain fart moment. Couldn't remember the word for suspenders. Called them farmer straps, complete with hooking his thumbs through his imaginary suspenders and moving his hands up and down. Like an old guy wearing suspenders might do. And I laughed so hard I cried and almost fell out of my damn chair. Edit, hot damn. Thanks for popping my gold cherry. I teach on the college level and students try to convince me dumb stuff is true a lot. At least once a semester a student will try to fight with me saying Africa is a country. Last year I was a TA for gender studies at a reasonably well-ranked university in the US. I asked students to write a short story about how life for humans would be if we reproduced in a different way and how it would affect society. For example, We grow our babies in jars in the hospital. How would that affect society? I told them not to write anything they wouldn't want their old lady teaching team to read. I got 4 pages of explicit spider pornography. Not a teacher. But one freshman in my class took a rip of his vape and got caught by the substitute teacher. He tried to deny it by saying he could make vapor out of his mouth with nothing else. That actually is possible. Search it up. I wouldn't call him dumb, but I did stop and stare at him thinking it was a joke. When I was student teaching last year, one of my students made a comment about the 52 states. I corrected him and said there are 50 states, and he asked me if I remembered to count both Washingtons. As in Washington and Washington, D.C. One of my 16-year-old students asked, while starting a multiple choice test, if it mattered what letter he chose. I just stared at him. Sometimes there are no words. I'm baffled. I need a follow-up. Did he figure it out? One of my other students said yes. Dumbus. There's only one right answer. He then face-palmed and said I'm a moron. Double quote. I didn't respond to either comment. Lol. He caught a case of the stupid that day. Not a teacher. But was helping my friend who's a TA go over some first year essays. It was an essay about video games. And aside from the format being non-existent, one of the first sentences was something along the lines of there are many examples of video games, such as the Wii and PS4 and Zelda. Unfortunately, she wasn't allowed to grade any papers below 50%. He got a 50%. I'm not a teacher, but I work in a school. Every semester at least one class comes into my computer lab to take a test on the computer. The teacher reminds them all that no sites other than the test page are allowed. There's always one kid who pulls up Google the first time he doesn't know an answer. It's like clockwork. Edit. Forgot to add we have software to see computer screens and the students are told this. Not a teacher. But a girl in my college bio class asked, if a woman doesn't have a uterus, how does she go to the bathroom? None of my students have ever been dumb, but they had brain farts at times. I was teaching in the East End of London in a school that was 98% Bengali. I had one lesson about our names and that they have meanings to our families, culture, or in other languages etc. I shared why my name was what it was and the meaning behind it. Some children were sharing about their names. One of my students got very excited and yelled out, "What does my name mean?" The whole class did a facepalm. His name was Mohammed. I'm not a teacher, but in my IB Math Studies course, we spent a good hour and a half explaining to a group of girls that you can't divide anything by 0. It was frustrating to watch them try to argue that you can divide 7 calculators into groups of 0. My teacher just couldn't comprehend the people he had to deal with. That. Had classmates in high school who skipped class to play basketball in the gym. When the teacher found them, they were peeved at having their playtime interrupted. They honestly thought that because they were athletes and were part of various sports teams that they could do whatever so long as they win games. They were kicked out of their teams for being assholes and failing classes. Plus our teams were shit. I am a teacher now, but this happened when I was in medical school. The only way we would ever be let off from attending something mandatory was if we had a sick leave from our hospital. So naturally students got really good at lying about having diarrhea and migraines. But if you had too many of the same complaints, the system would flag it and you'd have to complete a lengthier evaluation and your parents' guardians would be notified. So one kid had the idea of faking appendicitis. He faked all the signs and symptoms so well, he was after all a medical student, they almost took him to surgery. This is a classmate of mine. During English, she asked if she had to spell her name. In English, I live in Belgium. During biology, we watched a documentary about the ocean. When a manta appeared, she said, "Look, that bird can dive." She said that she's a vegetarian because she only eats meat she likes. When talking about climate change, she was saying that our class is full of horrible people because we don't do that much for the climate. When we asks her what she does for the climate, she said she doesn't do anything for the climate because other people need to do that. She thinks she's the smartest girl in class. I'm an English teacher and coach of the boys cross country team at my school. One of my runners showed up to meet wearing a suit and tie, as well as slacks, even though I specifically told all the runners to wear their singlets and race shoes not only the day before, but in an email earlier that morning and right before they all got on the buses. I said last call, if anyone needs to get their singlet and race shoes, go grab them now kids. Sometimes I'm not a teacher, but when school started back up I was put in German 2 and the most students didn't study over summer, so the teacher came in and said, hello class. We were there summer? Hello class. How was summer? And no one knew how to respond. She then took a student's items and threw it. She left the room saying dumb Kopf. Dumb head. She never returned and has been replaced by a sub. Spent 15 minutes with my 9th graders going over MLA headings in great detail. Even gave them a reference sheet to keep at home. Later received at least 3 essays from students named your name. Truly sad times. I teach in a district where kids get iPads in middle school and laptops when they get to the high school. They don't know how to do anything on a computer. Cut and paste. Print. Tap. It's crazy what they never learned. University course, paper on witches, spelt witch throughout the whole paper. Favorite sentence, witches and broomsticks. Footnoted a phone number as a source. Marking those papers broke me. I taught human anatomy labs in college. We had 3 different practicals throughout the semester, and every test we would put a couple of really easy questions. Or at least as easy as we could, so that there was a slight mental break and a confidence boost. The last practical we did included the digestive, circulatory, and urogenital system. The structure that was used was the male model with a pointer stuck right in the middle of the shaft of the pen 15. The student missed it by answering that it was the urinary bladder. The student was male. For Women's History Month, I had my students give presentations on famous women in history. One student got up and, dead serious, gave a presentation on Anne Franklin and said that the Holocaust was a guy called Hitler. She had researched all of this. I still don't understand. I teach college in the UK, so 16-18 year olds. Mainly teach maths resit, so they've failed before but no excuse. Group of them having an argument. I go over and ask what's wrong. Majority of them trying to tell one student that you get 10 marks on every exam just for writing your name and ID number on the front. Other one only disagreed because he said last time got less than that on the exam. Marks just for correctly filling out your name. Not me. But when my wife and I took a Lamaze class for the birth of our first child, there was a couple in the class that had no clues. This was in the late 80s. So no cell phones. The mother-to-be went into labor early. She was able to get a hold of her husband at work to let him know. He asked how far apart the contractions were, to which she replied to, well, the instructor had said to wait until they were 4 minutes before going to the hospital. So to call him back when they got there. Needless to say, things didn't go as planned. Not my story, but my brother's. I still chuckle about it. He taught at a trade school, and he's a super nice, patient guy. One of his students calls in him in a panic that she can't get to school BC of a flat tire. She frantic and has no one else to call for help. NP. This will be a good teaching moment. So he drives out to help her. And as he's examining the tire, explains to her that she's got a nail right in the top, and is going to show her how to change it. She scoffs at him, rolls her eyes, and proceeds to tell him that that's absolutely impossible. BC, the tire is flat on the bottom, not the top where the nail is. Needless to say, my brother didn't even bother explaining to her how to change the tire. I'm not a teacher, but was a high school student. I was in a baking class when I smelled blueberries. I thought we were making blueberry pies. Nope. The guy sitting next to me was vaping. He wasn't being discreet about it either. Looking back at it, I can't help but laugh at how stupid it was.